Welcome to Live Abroad Now. Today we have a very special guest.
Yes, Carlos Ramirez from Blue Box Insurance stopped by to tell us all about the different types of coverage and costs associated with private health insurance as well as the public IESS plan here in Ecuador.
Before we dive in, if you're thinking about moving to Ecuador, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell please, because we can show you how.
Hola, Amelia and GP. Thank you so much to invite me to your place. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Carlos Ramirez. I represent to Blue Box Insurance Advisor from Cuenca. We are working in insurance for almost 10 years and we are now planning opening a new office in Manta, and it's my pleasure to be here with you, and please let me know any question about insurance. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm still working with different companies, different insurance companies. We represent almost 20 insurance companies. If we consider health insurance, car insurance, homeowners, or different kind of insurance, we represent almost 20 insurance companies here in Ecuador. And the company that we recommend you will depend what kind of insurance you are looking for. If you are looking for health insurance, how old are you, if you had pre-existing conditions, all that information is important to prepare the best quotes. But we represent different kind of insurance companies and we can recommend you different ways to be completely covered in Ecuador. Let me start explain you about health insurance. In Ecuador you have two options for health insurance. The first option is the IESS. The IESS is the government insurance, and the other way to be covered for health insurance is the private insurance companies. We have in Ecuador 28 health insurance companies that offer different kind of coverage. With IESS, what's important to consider with IESS, you will need first your cédula. You can't apply to IESS without a cédula. And to get your cédula, you will need a certificate from a private insurance company, and then you can get your cédula. Some people combine plans. That's possible too. For example, if you are a person that has pre-existing conditions, you need to consider the waiting periods to be covered with the pre-existing conditions. In the private insurance companies, it's normally 2 years. But if you have pre-existing conditions and like be covered before 2 years, you can get the IESS. The IESS is only 3 months waiting period for pre-existing conditions. For this reason, some people use IESS like a major medical plan for major things, for surgeries, and a basic plan, for example, from the private insurance companies to be able to use private health services in clinics or buy your medicines in different pharmacies, you know, because if we consider how it works, the IESS is a closed network. The IESS never will reimburse you money. See, if you has only IESS, you need try to use the public services, the public hospitals. They will authorize you to get medicines only from the public pharmacies. That's the main difference between use IESS or use the private insurance. The private insurance is more flexible in where you can go to be covered. For example, you can choose your own doctors, your own clinics, your own pharmacies. You can pay your medical expenses and apply to reimburse you. That's the main difference between use IESS or use a private insurance company. Let me explain you a little bit about the coverage with the private insurance and the coverage with the IESS. The IESS is important to consider that they will pay for all kind of medical expenses, but only in his own network, in the public hospitals. Then, what kind of coverage you will get from the IESS? Medicines, surgeries. If you need planify surgeries, you can do it, and the waiting period is only 3 months. With the private insurance companies, the waiting periods are a little different. You have a waiting period for doctor appointments, 1 month. After 1 month, you will be covered in the private insurance with doctor appointments. 3 months to planify surgeries or the hospitalary coverage. After 3 months, if your doctor suggests you any surgery that not an emergency, you can do it after 3 months. Emergencies in both plans 24 hours. And the waiting period for pre-existing conditions is the most important and probably is the main difference between these two plans, because in the private insurance you have 2 years waiting period for pre-existing conditions, and in the ISS you have only 3 months waiting period for pre-existing conditions. It's important to know how works both coverage, because the ISS will pay for medical expenses only in his own hospitals. Sometimes when you go to the hospital in ISS and they can't admit you in the ISS hospital, they will send you to a private clinic. That can happen too, but all need to be pre-authorized for the ISS. With the private insurance, it's more flexible. You can choose your doctors. You can go to wherever you want to go to get your medical assistance, and then you can apply to reimbursement. It's more flexible. With the private insurance, you have 90 days. That's important. You have 90 days to submit your claims. That's a difference between the coverage in the state too, because I know that in the States you can send bills for 1 year during the whole year. Here you have 3 months. If you send bills after 3 months, not will be paid for the private insurance companies. That's important to consider too. Let me talk a little bit about deductibles, because it's a big difference with ISS and the private insurance. With ISS, you doesn't have a deductible. It's 0 deductible. With the private insurance, will depend what kind of plan you are looking for, because we offer higher amounts of coverage with higher deductibles. For example, a plan called Major Medical Plan that will cover you $500,000 with 5,000 deductibles, and the premiums will be cheaper. The other option is higher coverage with lower deductibles. For example, $100,000 coverage per incident with $180 annual deductible is another option. Smaller plans with the smaller deductibles is possible too. For example, a plan that will cover you $6,000 per incident with $100 annual deductible. In the private insurance, will depends what you are looking for, but in the ISS, you doesn't have a deductible, you doesn't have a copay. The copay is important too, because normally in the private insurance, you will be covered up to 90% in the network and 80% out of the network. In the ISS, no copay, no deductibles, like a GP say in theory, because it's really important to consider that the ISS offer that kind of service, but many times doesn't work correctly. For this reason, it's a good option. Get ISS with a private insurance. Just in case that doesn't work correctly, ISS, you can use your private insurance. I have many customers that combine these two plans, and they start a treatment, for example, in the private insurance, and then they ask to move to ISS to continue with the treatment. You can do that. That's important to remember too. Okay, let me talk a little bit about prices. The prices that determine how much is the cost for the insurance. Let's start it with ISS. In ISS, when you make a subscription to ISS, the best way to enjoy the ISS is like voluntary. What that means, not will depends of my incomes. For example, I am an Ecuadorian broker. If I has an income of $1,000, I will pay 17% of my incomes. But if you are an expat and you are going to subscribe to ISS, you need to choose the option that say voluntary. What say voluntary? You will pay considering the minimum income in Ecuador that now is $400. Then your premium can be in around $72, $74 per month for ISS. With the private insurance can change, because the private insurance will ask you for your age, for your pre-existing conditions, if you are a smoker, different things that can change the rate and the premiums. But to give you an idea, a higher coverage, let's say $100,000 per incident with a lower deductible, $180 annual deductible for a 65 years old person can be in around $220, $230. Now, what you can do in the private service, you can combine private insurance. For example, You can use a major medical plan with higher deductible. Let's say $500,000 coverage with $5,000 deductible. Then the premium will be less. For 65 years old, can be around $70 for that kind of plan. But if you like be covered in small procedures, you can combine your major medical plan with a smaller plan, call it Vida Buena, one of our plans, that will cover you up to $6,000. Then, what's the reason to combine these two plans? The premium for the smaller plan is only $39.20, no matter your age. $40, let's say $40, plus $70 from the major medical. With $110, $120, you will be covered up to $500,000 with the private insurance companies. And like I told you, with the ISS, you can choose the voluntary payment and you will pay around $72. Then ISS can be combined with the basic plan too, and you can use ISS like a major medical plan and be covered for the basic coverage for the basic plan and ISS too. It's possible combined plans. That's a good way to be completely covered. You can save money because if you remember in my first example, the monthly premium can be $220, $230. If you combine two plans, can be less money, you can save money and be completely covered. Okay, let's talk a little bit about claims. The claims in the private insurance companies need to be sent maximum in 3 months. Let's say I had an emergency today. I have 3 months to send the bills to the insurance company and apply to reimbursement. It's important try to send all the bills before the 3 months or probably at the end of the second month maximum, because sometimes the insurance company can ask you for more documents. If the insurance company asks you for more documents, the time to present all the bills is the same 3 months. It's really important. Try to submit the bills as soon as possible. Please consider that if you have a private insurance coverage, definitely you will need reimbursement forms. If you already are insured with any private insurance company, take care of the forms that you will need present to get the reimbursement from the insurance company. And with the ISS, it's different because the ISS will give you directly assistance. You need to go to the ISS hospitals or the public hospitals, and if you remember, you not will pay copays, deductibles, or bills. They will pay for all directly, and you not will need reimbursement forms. You know, that's the main difference. With the private insurance, you will need reimbursement forms, you will need your bills, you will need prescriptions to get the reimbursement. But of course, if you are working with an insurance advisor, like with our office, it's part of our job, help you to submit all these documents. It's important to remember that if for any reason the private insurance company denied your claim, that not will be the last decision. You know, you can get a second opinion. If you are working with an insurance broker, the insurance broker can report to Superintendencia de Compañías about your claim, and the Superintendencia de Compañías will verify all the documents and will confirm if it's a refused claim or in many times they order to pay the claims. We have many denied claims, but we apply to Superintendencia and finally they pay for the claims. That process, when you have an administrative claim with an insurance company, with a private insurance company, not will be immediately. It can take 3, 4, 5 months to get the second opinion from the Superintendencia de Compañías, but it's a free process. You know, you can do it by yourself. If you doesn't have an insurance broker, you can do it with Defensoría del Pueblo. It's like the public service from the government to help you to solve that kind of problems. If you have a contract now, a denied claim, you can talk with Defensoría del Pueblo and they will help you to submit the claim to Superintendencia de Compañías and try to solve the problem. And if you are working with an insurance agent, you can ask to your insurance agent for a second opinion from Superintendencia de Compañías.
We discussed our health insurance in our last cost of living video over on Amelia and JP, our other channel. I'll put a link to that video above Amelia's head so you can go check it out.
We are not insurance agents or experts, so if you do have specific questions, we recommend that you contact an insurance agent directly.
Yes, and I will put a link to blueboxinsurance.com in the description below if you would like to talk to Carlos and his team.
That's all we have for this video. If you found it helpful, leave us a thumbs up, please.
And also, be sure to check out our other channel, Amelia and JP, where we show you what it's really like to live in Ecuador.